Intervals, power meters, FTP training, sweet spot, tapering, negative splits, normalised power. The modern cycling training landscape is a vastly different one to what it was in a bygone era. But you never used to see Eddie Merckx letting numbers cramp his style. And you also didn't used to see Sean Kelly holding back because of his pulse rate, did you?
No, you didn't see Sean Kelly with clipless pedals either, but anyway, still, perhaps the old school way was, in fact, the way to train. So with that in mind, here is how to train like it's 1986. The aim of training in the 80s is to condition ourselves for long races. So that means we need to train for endurance and only endurance. But how do you make sure you're still getting the training effect? You do 200 kilometers a day, every day. That's right. How.
Yeah, apparently Eddie Merckx, when he was preparing for the season, used to ride from Flanders, where he lived, all the way down to the Ardennes and back every single day with a few poor, unfortunate teammates. Now that of course wasn't 1986, but there's no doubt that people like Bernard Hinault and also Sean Kelly would have been doing something similar, and they were the hard nuts of cycling.
That's right, so forget about your intervals, just ride your bike and ride it slowly.
So you know what, Si? I think we're going to be quite good at this old school training stuff.
No, I'm enjoying it. Hold on a minute, mate, that's a bit quick.
We've got 192 k's to go. With all of this slow training, what you're going to become very good at is riding slowly. You're looking very good going slow there, Si. But that doesn't really matter, because all races, at least all races that come before the month of April, are training races. So you can afford to arrive at the start of the season slightly overweight and also with only the ability to go slowly, because everybody's going to be in the same situation. But you're all going to be flying by the time it comes to June.
Now we know that eating food whilst riding can help delay the hunger knock, and we knew that back in 1986, but that didn't mean that you were actually allowed to eat any. Hell no.
Far better then to set off on a training ride with your mates and ride as far as you possibly can before the inevitable happens and you completely blow your doors. At which point just find a local shop and gorge on as much Turkish delight as you wish. In fact, until very recently, this is what Matt Stevens thought sweet spot training was.
Well, that's what it was back in 1986, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was.
While we're on the subject of nutrition, don't even think about hydration, because what we want is to actually train ourselves not to need water. Yep, you heard.
That's right, and you can help yourself in this one and make sure you don't pussy out of it by only having one bottle cage on your bike as you build up to the ultimate, which is no bottle cage at all. Simply a hip flask of brandy in your back pocket to keep you warm when you need it.
Whoa.
Back in 1986, if you were at the forefront of technology, you may have had a heart rate monitor, although back then it would have been called a pulse meter. Now the main reason you would have had one of these devices is simply to impress your mates. Maybe glance down every now and again to look at the number and make the 7 hours of training pass by a bit quicker for you and also for everyone else. However, what you could also use it for is to make sure that you're in the correct training zone, i.e. just about into triple figures. After all, you don't want to ride too fast before the season starts.
In the modern era, we choose our gears depending on need. So we often find ourselves using our little chain rings for climbs and then our big chain rings for flats and descent. But it hasn't always been the case, because back in 1986, chainring selection was seasonal. You didn't use your big chainring before Christmas. In fact, you weren't even allowed. At the end of a long ride, you might find your coach checking your big ring to make sure there was not a single trace of oil on it.
Mind you, what size were their little rings back then?
It was like a 42, wasn't it?
What about their cassettes?
12 to 18 straight through, wasn't it?
Okay.
1842, that's quite a big gear.
Yeah, it is. Now, if you are a little bit worried about the fact that you're not allowed to use your big ring until Christmas, you needn't be, because from March onwards, it's the only ring that you are allowed to use. Even if you're on a steep climb and you hear some rather disconcerting popping noises coming from your knees, that's because riding on the big ring is going to make you strong. And strong was good back in 1986. You didn't see any weedy climber types winning Grand Tours back then, did you? Ooh, look at my little noodly arms. Like size.
So far we have stuck rigidly to training, but our clothing is an important part of this, because you see, we want our training to make us tough. So that means no overshoes, no gloves, and shorts at all times. 1986, high five.
Did they used to use carbon fibre bikes worth multiple thousands of pounds in any currency back in 1986?
I don't think so.
One of the problems with this lack of clothing is that sometimes you can get very, very cold indeed, even though in the modern era the winters are nowhere near as harsh as they were back in 1986. Now, a good trick in this situation is to jump off your bike on the next climb and start running in an attempt to get your circulation going. But just be careful, in that attempt to get your blood circulation going, don't let your heart rate go too high.
In conclusion then, we can pretty clearly see that old school 1986 training methods are pretty basic, pretty crude, and that now, surely, sports scientists know truly how to get the most out of our bodies.
But do they? I mean, I've been thinking through this video. You used to train with intervals and I used to train with power, and we were nowhere near as good as they were. Maybe we should have hardened up and trained like Sean Kelly.
That's true, actually. Yeah, quite possibly.
Food for thought, even though actually you're not allowed any food.
Right.
Nevertheless, a couple more videos for you to peruse right now. Down there is how to improve your FTP, and down here, ironically, is how to fuel your riding.
Enjoy it like it's 2016. Right, also make sure you subscribe to GCN, again like it's 2016. To do that, just click on the globe.
Yeah, couldn't do any clicking back in the day, could you?
No, what was clicking? Genuinely, there's nothing to click.
Page turning, I'm just buying a book.